Alright, Anton. I don't mean to use you for this, but remember all that merch I've been helping you sell by telling my people to buy your merch because it keeps the integrity so high? When
And also certain
when I'm
telescopes
going
only
through
saw
some
it
of those
once, but not other
cases
times.
and I'm
This
looking at
made
some
the
of that
system
heavy
more
duty like
unnatural
that,
and more
I'd say
elusive.
get a permit.
Something
Get a
unusual,
permit
something
to do
really
something job
difficult to
like that. You need
explain
a
was
permit to
happening here,
handle
but it
venomous
was definitely
snakes. You need a
happening
permit
and definitively happening in
to do all
really far away
kinds
from
of
planet
stuff that
Earth.
are
But what made this
dangerous
even more mysterious is that
and
additional
and
observations
have
using other
high
frequencies,
regulatory
including of
standards on
course
what that is,
observations in the visible light and in
because that way you
X-rays,
take the
or
risk.
actually
You
even
know, at
infrared
least pay the
observations,
fine on what
also
that
discovered
is. And
absolutely
it's got to be a
nothing in
pretty
this
steep fine.
region.
You are
So whatever
integrating
it
people's
was
lives,
only
the
visible in radio
interrogation
light. And
process,
to make things
and
even more
whether the
complicated, the light was
policies
also
of
extremely
what
polarized,
the
or basically twisted.
administration
And
as a
this
whole,
twisting is
especially at the
usually, or at
federal
least in most
crime
cases,
level.
the result of some sort of an extremely powerful
And I really
magnetic
don't think that
field.
there's a
And
difference
so if
between
this
federal and
particular
state
radio
law.
light
I
came
think if
through
you go
some
looking
really
for it,
magnetically charged particles,
there's
or some
regulations that go
areas
into it,
filled
but I
with
think
polar
at
magnetic fields,
the
or
extremes
originated
of
from
those
some sort
things,
of magnetized
murder,
object
rape,
such as a neutron star
pedophilia,
or even a magnetar, this would potentially explain
extortion
what we're
is going
observing.
to be way
But
up
it still
there.
would not explain why we're not observing anything else.
Kidnapping.
No
You
X-rays,
know,
no gamma
those are
rays, no
federal
visible light,
crimes where
nothing.
you need a
Only radio
federal
waves. So what
penitentiary to be
exactly
able
could
to
it be?
handle the
And what could
refinement
have
on
actually
those.
created this?
And then you
Well,
got
in terms
jail.
of the other
Then
signals
you
similar to
got
this, scientists have
your
detected several
extremities
radio
of those things. But
variations
when you think
from some
about it, is
really
there really
powerful
a need
regions in the
for?
universe.
I
For
mean,
example,
not a need. We're
typical
gonna need the
supermassive black
building
holes,
space. We're
certain
gonna
types of
need
light rays, such as eclipsing light rays or
guards,
whatnot, that
bars,
usually steals a
and
lot
lunch
of mass from the
lines,
other
lunch
object,
ladies,
or even certain types
interrogators,
of extremely powerful flaring
prosecutors,
stars.
lunch ladies,
Stars
all
that
that
sort of
fun stuff.
explode far
Gonna
away,
have to
release
have
a
that.
lot of energy,
Got
but
all
then quiet
kinds of
down and go
composition,
back to their normal
118 elements
stage.
floating
But the
around in
problem
here
is that along
somewhere.
the way, these events also release a
But
tremendous
when we're
amount of
looking at this,
X-rays,
I think
which
you
should be
need
at least
some
partially
kind of
visible in
permit,
some other, more powerful light.
to be able to deal with this. You need a permit to have deer on your property, but you don't necessarily need a permit to do interrogation crimes on this. You got a YouTube page, and you collect in enough votes inside here. I think you need something because, I don't know if they've ever made this man sign anything. I don't know any of those things. I don't know any of the rules and regulations on that, and there certainly isn't information that is easily readable to it. I think you're going to get lost in Alice in Wonderland and down the rabbit hole about trying to figure out that information, and that's certainly not what the NP problem's about. Easy to check, easy to look up. I should be able to hit this on here because we get into all kinds of harassment cases, which is a Sharps violation, which turns into their own, which can get ramped up. Harassment can turn into murder. Okay? It's just that cut and dry with the trajectory on those things and what happens. Of course, when we're dealing with some of the other things involved in here,
Back of that car in the crossfire. Wonderful human being, this guy. The other people who were in the car note the F out and don't want any part of this crap.
at any rate, let's go back real quickly here. Donut, I'm talking to you too. I think you pay the permit on it. I think you'll have no problem getting it. And you make it entertaining. You pose the best light for the situation, for the police inside of the situation. And again, that drives integrity way up. Doesn't necessarily give them an out on the situation. It doesn't say, well, I was morally correct to do so in the situation when the POV of the model. And Donut's certainly been an advocate across the board of being polite, talking to the guy. He presented the whole information of that system in there. And, what happens next inside of the situation certainly is unfortunate, but there you go. With that in mind, you have other options out there where other people make criteria on space. They make it on space. Space and time and some of the other privileges inside of there about what goes on, you got to be dynamic about these things or use the proper regulations to handle this material. There's certainly fiction as a value. You could paint this out with a Bernoulli's equation to anybody's name you want without it actually being that person with this person's face in the scenario. put whatever clip art and designs you want to do that to situationally design the standards to do what they need to do, and present to light based on true events that this is what that's done. We've certainly seen it on TV before. This story is based on true events, but they always blow it up, when it winds up being thermodynamics change out every single piece until it's something totally different. A totally different machine, which can you then quantify it to be the same machine. Alright, and law works a lot of that way too. Law is mathematically sound to X, Y, and Z, trajectories, values, timelines, and situations that go into the refining model of what the fuck it is we're looking at here, and how you can do something with it. Is it easier to go get around, or wherever you're living in some desert where they don't have steel, but a lot of meteors fall, or iron, but a lot of meteors fall, let alone the equipment necessary inside of here to forge out that piece of metal. What are we dealing with? What's the game on what this is as far as what's going? So again, I want to just note on those things. Have a license to do something like this. Hey, if you want to get into this kind of field, get a license. If, at least that way you're morally correct of it. I know the laws are probably already presented in the information. You probably couldn't do something like this unless it was presented. I don't know why that would have been posted before the trial, after the trial, or otherwise. Names aren't necessarily necessary in here, especially after somebody's dead. That's I'm sure the family found out about it. I'm sure the immediate family on side of there, and why everybody else and their brother needs to get involved in these situations, caused a lot more harm than good, given a lot of the situational models. I'm not going to specify certain names out there of groups of interest that would be relative in the situation, but we certainly have to start taking that. It's wide open market, you know what I mean? That's, you get into some stuff around here that gets really, really out of control on some of the standards. Now, I made the joke, it's crazy. Of course people are going to drink and drive. Of course they are. As long as you can drink in a bar and they don't call the cops on you immediately afterwards. We all know somebody or something out there that's always had one for the road. And that's not really the job of the bartender. But, when the bar is swamped like that, I'll take another one, and it's a business. How are you supposed to control them from stopping with a bottle or a can that you just handed them and they could easily walk out the building with? Can't do nothing about that. And I don't think that the bartender is specifically legally responsible for the decisions that somebody made, but you poured an alcohol solution into the situation, and now here we are in this situation where, you could have bought it from the store, sat at home, made decisions, and not gone out and done things. And it's not the store clerk's responsibility to deal with that either. I can't deal with the choices that they make, but probability that you're going to get COVID in Florida, is something that changes all these laws across the board or mandates things to be changed, and with a pen stroke this stuff could be changed. But then, there's an argument about whether it's acceptable to finally go through Congress or something. Like, there's so much on the board here that could easily be changed, worth everything, give you clout, give you integrity, keep morale high, or not morale, but integrity high on police station and investigators and things like that, before kid gloves come in here. It's like, well, you're entitled to your rights and your things and this, that, and the other. Look, the lawyer's going to present you with what information that they have. Some of these cases are, they don't need your testimony. They really don't. They're just trying to get the truth, and maybe that helps you get parole in the end of this, or maybe that helps you get some things, which should be for your own benefit to do that, and maybe that would be worth a thing, but you can't guarantee those things to be correct. So cut it out. You write the law just the way it is. Hey, look, this is what we can provide by you by actually giving it up and telling us the truth. If you choose not to do this now, this is your one shot. and then I can fail fair by leaving this room if you don't want to make that decision, and that'll be the end of this. You know, deal gone bad, that happens. That all kinds of contracts in this world, lemon laws, everything like that make people, you know, it wasn't good with gravity. It wasn't the base of the situation. It wasn't the value that you told me that this was worth. The car broke down immediately after it broke out of the lot. And, you know, the drag on the situation is not fair for everybody inside of here, because, you know, there might have been a millionaire that decided to buy that car, or some guy that was just had enough to buy the car, but now can't go where they're supposed to go, has to buy a lawyer inside of here. And that's reasonable. I mean, honestly, it is, and we have to face the fact on that number right there about what are we doing, guys. So I hope I made my statement clear. I'm sure I forgot something inside of there about, you know, have a license for this stuff. Watch your harassment on this. I think it works awesome for interrogating standards. I think it works great for data analysis and comprehension of information, just as a practice. Like, I could go through here, get names, get practice, stay on timelines, register things, and that's a useful skill with all kinds of fun stuff in this universe that you could use, and figure fun stuff out and do stuff with it for the rabbit inside here, and certainly what you do in life, because that kind of skill is super important. What happened in the interrogation here? What happened in the Marshmallow incident report? What happened in the after action report? Because those things are field analyses. Those things are field theories. Those things are Bell's equality and inequality to hire, fire, terminations, and other values of that type of gambit. As you do the chess game, just draw it out. The problem you'll have is once you get to certain stages in the game, you'll have one space where you might have in the middle of the game, not just at the first gambit of the game, but multiple stations in that game where some people only have one move and some people could have multiple moves. If I was moving, then there might be 2 or 3 pieces that I have an option to move, which correlate to very different gambits. And as you try to write that in a piece of paper, it can't really be done unless you're coding it correctly. Unless you're saying the divergent flow from here is going to continue in this gambit, marking all of those gambits. And as soon as I'm done with all those gambits, we're going to go to the first step of the first gambit that I lost, and then we're going to slide that in there. So that way it's mathematically congruent in terms of the steps. So the Turing machine that you want to create for that, but the overall isn't just a Turing machine in this case. It would be a NP-complete Turing machine with all the turbulent flows played by off of the first movement that had the 2 flows. So I'm going to mark that second flow that I'm not going to take from this one that does. And any one that does off of this, I'm going to choose that dynamic again and continue to do that. When I come back, we're going to play this game, and we're going to go all the routes that could be done in there. And as soon as we're done with all that, we're going to come back, or excuse me, not the alternating move on this one. And then because the first gambit was the first gambit that I did, now that we took this, then we're going to take all the secondary gambits off of here, and we're going to play the second of gambits that played from that first move, and you're going to map them all out. Boy, 10 to the 36th numbers of games you can play inside of a situation like this that actually specifies every game that could possibly be played in that game of chess. Well, the stone mill works that way. Harmonics work that way. There's a lot of different indicators of, do I want to add a flat or a regular note into that? Do I want to try A minor, F minor, kind of combinations? And it's going to come at you much, much faster than that in the real world. So that's the kind of mathematics we're dealing with in situations like this that we have to be mentally and physically aware of as we're handling what the long game trajectories on some of this stuff are going to be about. So catch you on the next one.